Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today. Now, what we do is I take an individual horror film from any different subgenre or decade or time period, and me and my special guests kind of sit down, discuss, analyze, critique, and all the above for that particular film. Now, that being said, we never know what we're going to get into because as horror fans, each and every one of my special guests has a different background. They have a different kind of decade of film that they are really close to. So I mention that because the film we are talking today is steeped in the tropes of 80s horror films, and that would be the 1984 adaptation of Children of the Corn from based on the book by Stephen King. Now, of course, that being, everyone out there knows that the Children of the Corn franchise is one of the longest running franchises out there, and it's officially been remade twice already. But we're going back to the original 84 version with Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton. And to discuss this film, I have brought on Mr. Philip Ray, who was not around when the movie came out. So it's going to be interesting to discuss this film. Thank you, Philip, for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me. And I messed up. I thought we were doing the remake of Children of the Corn. The 2020 COVID.
One day we will get around to the plethora of endless sequels. That this is like the franchise that won't die. You think it's dead for like 3 or 4 years, and then another random sequel just pops up out of nowhere. So
funny because you think of I guess maybe because of the concept, but you compare to other Stephen King adaptations that get remade, like Pet Sematary gets one every once in a while, Carrie gets one for the while and stuff, but it's weird that Children of the Corn is one of those that keeps getting a remake or gets like a sequel and stuff.
Yeah, I would say random sequels, because none of the sequels, like the second one, The Final Sacrifice, may have a little bit of connection to this one that we're talking about today. But for the most part, most of the other ones are kind of really self-contained. You might say there's a little connection with Part 666 with Isaac's return, since Isaac is featured in this film. But for the most part, these films the sequels are all self-contained, and I think they're relatively really, really cheap to produce. And for the longest time, as we all know, with Dimension films, they were just producing sequels to keep the rights to the franchise, to keep it going. So they purposely put out cheap sequels, like they did with the Hellraiser franchise and Prophecy franchise and every other franchise. They decided to keep going longer than they ever did. But I do want to say that this film still has a unique charm for me, because I watched this growing up in the 80s. But for you, when did you come across this film for the first time, and what was kind of like your impressions of it when you first saw it?
So it's funny because with Children of Corn, even though I was born way after this movie had already been out and stuff, there is enough of the Children's Corn mythos out there in pop culture, so I knew about it for a long time before I ended up seeing it. I actually finally sat down to watch it for this episode and stuff, because I had heard of it and I knew about it, but I never got a chance to really sat down and watch it until a couple days ago to talk about it for this episode stuff, because I've been wanting to watch it, because again, it is a very popular. Again, I've heard about it so much. As for my thoughts, it was so interesting because I didn't know Linda Hamilton was in this. And it's so funny not knowing that, because as soon as the movie starts, I'm like, oh my God, that's Linda Hamilton. And then knowing this came out the same year Terminator came out for her, I was like, dang, that was 1918. It's funny because I don't think it's so funny comparing the two of both those movies came out the same around the same year, but have A, tonal differences, and B, I mean, you talk about with the budget and stuff, like, again, it's like like her role in this is so drastically different than what I would imagine Linda Hamilton would do and stuff. Because in this, she's essentially like mostly a damsel, which is funny because again, she would do Terminator, and that would be completely different to her in the end and stuff.
She was kind of a damsel in the first Terminator movie. It's not until the second one where she became a badass.
Yeah, but it's like now I always associate her with being a badass. So seeing her in this, I was like, oh, okay then.
So I have something for you, and anyone out there who has watched old movies as much as I haven't grown up in the '80s. So I've always saw Linda Hamilton as a badass because around the same time Children of the Corn, the Terminator was out. I also loved Linda Hamilton as a kid in Tag, the assassination game, which I know I did not watch when that originally came out because that's the '82 movie. I had to look it up because I was like, saying that's the '80s, but I don't remember when it was. But that's the one where she is kind of a badass because she's the lead. I don't know if you know anything about Tag. Not
I do
like the
not.
modern day Tag. So they used to use the little guns to shoot people to play tag with, and they made a movie called Tag, the assassination game. Great movie. If you remember the '80s, and she was the lead in that one, and you kind of have this impression that she's this it girl from the '80s who kind of died out a little bit until Terminator 2, and then after that she had Dante's Peak and some other movies, and then her career died down again a little bit. But I've always loved Linda Hamilton. I've always loved her in movies because I would watch this movie over and over and over, and Terminator and Tag the Assassination Game, and dude, I've even seen Dante's Peak more times than I ever should have seen that fucking movie because she's in it. Yeah, so that's where I come from with Linda Hamilton. But what did you think about the movie?
I like it. It's so different. It was not what I was expecting, and just the overall like the flow of the movie was very interesting to me because it is low budget, definitely feels low budget. Some of the effects do not age well, mostly with, and it's funny because reading more about the backstory and stuff and finding out how much like was going to be in it, but they had to cut it because of budget stuff. It is like it's so interesting because again, it's just like, and it's because I know the sequel, or I know like the remakes and stuff like do not do a good job and stuff, but it's like, and they change stuff, but like I actually found a lot of this compelling. I found the leads with Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton, so Bert and Vicky. I found those interesting characters, and then again with the additional with the kids and stuff as well. You can't have a Stephen King movie without one kid having some mystical powers and stuff. Who usually involves either some clairvoyance or whatever, because that's Stephen King's bread and butter at this point. But the thing is, we'll go more to the story later, but definitely was not expecting the way the ending, because I know general basis about the story, but I was not expecting the ending to go like where it went and stuff. So that very was surprising. But yeah, no, but generally I was very surprised about the movie, and I liking it.
So I generally saw this probably around when it came out. So I wanted to double check something. When did the second one come out? So the second, because I remember when the second one came out too at the theater.
The second one came out 1992.
So in '92, I only remember the second one coming out because my older sister saw that at the theater. I did not see that at the theater. I don't think I didn't see this one at the theater, but this one, like most Stephen King films in the '80s, were films that my mother absolutely made sure that she watched, and of course, when that happens, I'm watching it too. And this film was a lot of fun for me as a kid. It was never terrifying. It's supposed to be a horror film, but it was never horrifying to me, even as a kid. I don't know why that is. Maybe I had already watched way too many horror films at this point in my life, but it was never horrifying to me. I always cool.
I would agree. It's not. It's a horror movie, but it's not really a horror movie and stuff. It's more. It's a more supernatural than like a supernatural slasher, but it's not scary. It's not a scary movie.
Because the thing is, though, other than the killing at the very beginning of the film, there's no one else who really dies. Because you think Isaac might die, but Isaac comes back for a few moments to have his little revenge on Malachi. So it's a movie filled with kids that's supposed to be suspenseful, but it was never gory or horrifying.
Well, that's again because they had to cut down on money and stuff. Because like originally the dog, so the dog when he gets killed, so in case people are wondering, does the dog die.com? Yes, a dog does die in this movie. That was going to be a lot more gorier and stuff. They were going to have the dog's head be found by
Bert and Vicky?
Dale. I don't even know how to pronounce his
Dale.
name. Dale, yeah, Dale. Dale was going to find the dog's head, like in the car, and stuff. But they cut that because of budget and stuff. And then originally, Vicky and Bert were going to find Dale's dead body, like stereotypical Children of Corn style. Like he was going to have his eyes gouged out and have corn stalks in it. But again, had to cut that for budget. So the reason this movie is not that gory is because of budget. It's because they literally could not afford it. Even Isaac's like when he's possessed at the end, he was supposed to be half skeleton. Like he was supposed to be way more maimed and stuff and be more demonic. But again, they had to cut it because of budget. So
I think it worked better for the film overall. I think not being a gory film worked better for the film. So
yeah, I mean, would I have liked to see a little bit more of a gory? Sure. I think that's something, again, like a remake and stuff with this story, I would be totally okay with. At the same time, like you said, it didn't bother me too much about the fact that it was less gory. It reminded me of, for a modern day equivalent, it reminded me of like an A24 movie of like just something with a low budget and just doing stuff with a low budget that was like fine. Like,
well, and that's the thing is I've forgotten that this was such a low budget movie, but it was extremely successful. Hence why they did fucking sequels, at least for the first couple sequels, anyways. But the thing is that because this movie built upon suspense more than any type of graphic horror, I think it makes it work better. Especially and that's hard to really get the gouge in the 80s because we had those extreme horror movies in the 80s in addition to these type of movies. A lot of Stephen King adaptations in the 80s did not have a whole bunch of gore in them. A lot of deaths were off screen, and I hate to say this, but because Stephen King wasn't a known commodity for film audiences, they weren't given huge budgets back then.
No, I mean, that was one of the contention points because behind the scenes with this, originally Stephen King had written a draft of this, and basically, and Stephen King was not happy with the amount they offered and stuff. There's a lot back and forth. They also just didn't like King's script in general and stuff. They thought it was too dark and too moody, so they ended up having George Goldsmith rewrite it and stuff, and they ended up going with his version in the end and stuff. But yeah, originally it was Stephen King did have like a written theatrical version of it and stuff, but his called for more of a budget, and who was produced? New World Pictures. Well, it went to New World Pictures originally. Originally, it was 20th Century Fox that was going to produce this, but they did not like the money amount that King was asking for, so they were like, no.
And instead, it looks like they spent less than $1 million producing the movie.
Yeah, which is funny because it was a $3 million budget, but like, I'm not sure it doesn't say. I'm not sure how much King himself originally wanted the budget to be, but it definitely was. King was not happy with the budget they were offering, so he's like, "No, I don't want to do this."
Well, I mean, and that could be part of the reasons why he stopped being involved in these films that were based on his short stories. as opposed to the ones that were based on his actual novels. This did start a trend of just about way too many Stephen King adaptations coming out in the mid to late 80s into the 90s. We were bombarded with tons and tons of Stephen King adaptations. And of course, this franchise never really stopped on the straight to DVD streaming market like it is now. I mean, although I forgot that the recent remake did have a theatrical release. It was limited, but it did have a theatrical release. So.
Yeah, it's because it happened during 2020. So
Oh, is that when it came out? I couldn't remember when it came out.
yeah, it came out 2020. It came out. Oh, okay. It actually, correction. It was a Shudder thing. That makes sense. It became a Shudder movie in the end, so it had a really limited window, and
Yeah,
then it went straight to Shudder.
yeah. It had a limited window because I almost went to the theater to go see the remake. Um, and then I didn't go. I didn't make it there, so I kept thinking it only played like 1 week and then kind of disappeared. Like I was gonna say, oh man, I get to see a Children of the Corn movie at the theater, and the next week it was gone. That's how I felt about it. But I did buy it and I did see it, and there has been no sequel remake to kind of one up on this one. This one had a great cast, and we'll start talking with a little bit of the story. But this is a very simple story, to be honest with you. Um, and I think that's the reason why it works so well, is because it's such a simple concept that all the other sequels tried to complicate even more. And so at varying degrees, some of the sequels were successful, and other degrees they were not successful. But I will mention this, that there are a lot of stars that pop up in these damn sequels to these films, to this franchise, which is just astronomically crazy to believe that these stars that were nobodies when they did this sequel to the Children of the Corn film, but then go off to do huge films, because you got to remember Naomi Watts was in, I think, part 4. And then, of course, one of the Carradines was in, I think, part 5. And yeah, it's kind of crazy the way that it all works there. And of course, like this one was Linda Hamilton before Linda Hamilton was big, you know. This one came out in March of '84, but I'm not sure when Terminator came out. But I guarantee you, people more associate her with Terminator than they do Children of the Corn.
Yeah, Terminator came out. Terminator came out October. So
Oh,
it
okay.
was yeah, so it was later that year and stuff.
Yeah, so I did not see Terminator when it first came out. I think I saw Terminator right before Terminator 2, maybe a couple years before Terminator 2 came out. I did not watch that one when it came out. This one I did, only because my mother was, a huge Stephen King fan, so I remember this one fondly. And it still holds up, in my opinion. In my opinion, it still holds up. I still love this film. When I was rewatching it the other day, I was like, man, this movie's still fun. I have a really good version of it. So the shoddy special effects that you would like to mention at the very end of the movie don't look nearly as bad.
That's good. I mean,
Uh,
and when I say special effects, I only see half of it. Like the effect of
he who
the
walks behind the rose.
yes, he who walks behind the rows and stuff, when it's underground, that is a good effect. And that still works today. It also it reminded me of Tremors.
Yes, yes.
I was just like, oh gosh, the Tremor worms are in here.
Uh,
But no, that effect is done well. What's not the effect that doesn't look well is the light effect.
yeah. There's that whole sequence at the very end when they never really in this film they don't really show the he who walks behind the rose, and I think they give a really bad glimpse of the entity in the second one at the end. But I haven't seen the second one in so fucking long I don't remember anymore. But
Yeah, because that was another thing too, is originally it was going to be shown in the movie, but
yeah,
again, it got cut because of budget and stuff. Because it was going to be like the kids were going to describe it more. It was going to be kind of like this green gangly thing, but again, it got cut because of budget.
Yeah, I think the film, like we're discussing the Jaws franchise and the fact that the first Jaws movie doesn't show Bruce the shark because it fucking malfunctioned most of the film. I'm actually glad that we don't really see he who walks behind the rose, because I like the concept of him being or it being something underground. I did, as I got older and reading Stephen King's novels, I always imagined that the entity underneath the ground is like an early version of the Pennywise the clown creature, the it creature. Like Stephen King just like to put these random aliens in these towns, and we don't, as the audience member, we don't really know it yet, but it's a fucking alien that these people are fucking worshiping and shit. So I've always imagined that growing up after seeing so many of reading Stephen King's novels. I just kind of imagine that, because honestly, I've read the short story this is based on. I don't remember it because it's been like decades since I've read it. I've never gone back to reread it. The movies just do their own fucking thing because the story's so short to begin with. There's a lot to play with the concept, and because I think that this concept is so simple or simplified, each of the sequels just kind of ran with their own thing.
Yeah, no, I agree that like I think I've said this before in other episodes, less is sometimes better.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think them not really showing the creature fully, I think is better because it leaves you kind of wondering what it is. And there's a moment kind of like, because there's a point where, to me, when I was watching it, it did feel like it was like some type of either devil or evil god or something. Because at the end when things are burning and stuff, and you see it a little bit in the clouds, a little bit making a face and stuff like, which again, like that was. We're gonna be jumping out of order now, but I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about it.
Go ahead.
Holy crap. I will tell you again, this is someone who was not familiar. I did not read the short story beforehand and stuff. Like the entire time this movie's going on in my brain, I'm like, okay, we're going to find out that, oh, the Isaac was just zealous and wasn't actually being truthful and stuff, because they keep getting like commentary from we keep getting commentary from
Job.
the Job from Job and stuff, that he's like, yeah, Isaac was kind of weird when he came in and stuff. I don't like him, blah blah blah. So I was expecting this to be a thing where he was wrong and stuff. So when the moment happens where it's like, oh no, Isaac was right, floored me the first time watching this. I was not expecting that, because I was ready for the reveal of it being like because again, a big thing with Bert throughout the movie is he's like lecturing like the kids and stuff of like, are you really going to follow this? This seems really messed up. He has a big lecture at the end when he's fighting Malachi and stuff about it and stuff. So I was fully expecting Isaac to be the lie reveal with it. So when he wasn't, I was like, oh, this became a whole different movie. It was a great reveal for me for a first time, not knowing that.
So, as growing up with the film, a lot of what Bert said was above my head. So, and it's been a while since I've seen this, so forgive me. And I have a really good copy of it now. It's just been sitting on my shelf until now, so I could actually watch it. So, rewatching it for the podcast, I kind of actually paid attention to a lot of what Bert says in the movie. That he plays off as the more atheist character who doesn't believe in this whole religious overzealousness that these kids have fallen into. And when he's saying all this stuff, it really does something for me, because he also, when you're watching the movie, has a problem with commitment. Like, Linda Hamilton's Vicky wants him to commit to her. And throughout the whole thing, she's putting these hints in, and he's like, either just not committing to her or committing to the relationship, or just flat out saying it's better to not commit. Until the very end, of course, when he has to commit because they're survivors and they take these two kids under their wings. But the concept of them making a film that is like the kind of like the epitome of old school religion as seen and filtered through the eyes of children, and that of the grown-up world, and him being a doctor and being that idol, that idol idealized logic of being of science is a great contrast for me. And so those scenes when he's uh telling these kids that they're wrong, whether you believe in, you can't believe in this crap, is actually hits much harder because of what happens at the end with Isaac. Because he's all Isaac is this 125% believer. He was a believer before he got into that town, and before all this happened, he was more or less the weird kid who was a zealot until he convinced everyone else to go out into the cornfield. At the day of the reckoning, so to speak, where he kind of revealed to all the kids he who walks behind the rose and the gospel. As a kid watching this film so many times, you don't pick up on all that shit. You watch it because it's entertaining, and the fact that the main characters are all kids. Like, you have two adults and everyone else is kids, other than R.G. Armstrong, but he's only in the film for a very limited amount of time.
Yeah, so it's funny because I picked some of this up during the movie and stuff. Again, a lot of stuff with Bert and stuff, but it's behind the scenes. So Goldsmith, the metaphor with the movie was for him was the Iranian Revolution at the time. Was basically he was using this movie to kind of talk about the religious zealots during the Iranian Revolution and stuff, and how far people will take it. Will blindly follow stuff, even if it means like, oh, we're gonna kill your kid, we're gonna kill your parents and stuff, and all the kids being like, okay, yeah, and it's just like, again, the belief, hey, you hit a certain age, you gotta axe yourself, you're gonna die and stuff, and then again, like, and then Bert coming in and again having the lecture with the kids, which is a good little thing at the end where he's like, what kind of religion is filled with hate and stuff? Like, what type of thing that makes you want to do all this stuff and you agreeingly die and stuff? That's not religion. That's not how God should be and stuff. So there's a lot of, like, obviously there's a lot of religious undertone, but there's a lot, and it's really interesting to know that was the inspiration of it a little bit, because I know I read the short story after, and there is some of that in there, but I think it really is hammered home a little bit here with the movie, with Bert being, again, a lot more of a lecturing, like, no, you're taking this and you're twisting it in the worst way.
Yeah. And he actually says that they're taking bits and pieces from the Bible and twisting it.
Taking the stuff that they want, taking the stuff, cherry picking what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, that when he walks in on them in the church and they're sacrificing Amos, or they're preparing Amos to be sacrificed, because he doesn't get sacrificed in the church. They're preparing him because, of course, he gets sacrificed at the very end when he's the first one to walk into the cornfield and get attacked. But we don't see that. We just see him walk into the cornfield, and we hear what happens to him. I mean, it's weird when I say this out loud because I'm talking about this movie and I'm like, I watched this when I was a kid, and yet this is very disturbing imagery for a kid.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the concepts of, killing, like, again, all these kids killing their parents and stuff, and again the opening scene and stuff, like, I will give a small criticism that I was very surprised about how undersold the job was about seeing his dad die in front of him. He was just like, oh no, like, and I get it. It's just like, children actors, you can only do so much. But I was very much, when I watched it, I was like, man, he's like not really selling that well about seeing his dad die in front of him.
Well, I think the issue with that, and I picked up on that too, dude. I really did. I picked up on, like, the flashback scene where he's watching his dad get killed. It's supposed to be 3 years before now. And so I don't know, like, he's supposed to be really young. And so you're supposed to think that maybe he's like 7 or 8 when that happens. And so you can think that maybe he's not going to act too crazy. I don't know. But I picked up on that too. I was like, he doesn't act like he's literally watching his dad getting killed, and all the people he thought were his friends and he grew up around in that small little town are just killing everybody, and he doesn't go crazy. He doesn't go like this crazy thing. He simply just says, "That's the day my sister Sarah started drawing all the pictures."
Yeah, and it was just like that, and it was like because with Sarah and stuff, I understood like again she's a clairvoyant and all of that and stuff, but Job was very interesting in the story because he serves as the narrator and stuff, and to kind of help uh get kind of give the backstory stuff, which I know they're not in the original. At least Job's not in the original, and I did actually like their role in the story to kind of help be the narration a little bit to give a little backstory, but also to help better get Bert and Vicky into the story about what's going on and stuff. I thought they were done very well. I did find, but at the end I did. He made me laugh when he was out there for the third act because Bert's like, "Get out of there," and Job's like, "No," but he doesn't say no. He just stays there, and Bert's is like, "Okay, I guess help me."
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I like the reactions that Job has to everybody. He's this little kid who's like smarter than you would think he is,
Oh, he
and
made me laugh so much.
he does. And like with at the very end when Bert throws the torch, the Molotov cocktail, but he misses, and he has to go after it, and he brings it back. Do it right this time. There's just certain things that he says that is just, it makes the character the kid character seem much more authentic, even though
Oh,
he grew up in a small town and not a caricature.
yes, both Job and Sarah. Sarah at times feels a little bit more caricatured, like Stephen King. I've got visions and stuff, but no, you're correct. There was a moment that made me really laugh with Bert and Job when they're in the cellar and he's getting patched up and they're talking about oh, we need to go to the cornfield and stuff, and he was like, and Bert's like, show me, and Sarah's like, oh, I'll show you, and Job's like, oh, I'll show you. Like they got more and more excited, and it just made me laugh because they were just like, yeah, they were like you were saying, they felt authentic, they were acting like kids, like even the small moment, like it's a small moment that normally you could just cut out and it wouldn't mean anything. But the small moment where Job and Sarah are playing in their room before Malachi comes
Yeah,
in and finds them and stuff, the way they were acting, they were playing Monopoly, felt so much like
yeah,
kids
yeah,
playing because both of them tried to trick each other, being like, "Oh, I landed here," and it's like, "No, you didn't." And then Sarah Thornback is like, "Oh, that'll be $13 million. No, actually, he's at this much."
yeah. No, I really like it, and that's the thing why I still love this movie is I think that the relationship between those two characters and the relationship between Vicky and Bert are much more authentic because they gave Bert and Vicky this kind of underlying tension because she wants a commitment, like she's traveling with him to this new place hoping for a solid commitment, but he's not really giving her what she wants. So it's this underlying tension the whole time. And of course, these two kids are surviving simply because they didn't make it to the cornfield during the big meeting with He Who Walks Behind the Rose because he was with his father and she was sick. She was sick at home, so they were the only two, and they're seen as the outsiders. So you get that sense that Sarah kind of stays away from most of the rest of the town, and Job just kind of explores all the time. He just sees everything because he's small and he knows the town better than most other people. Like he can get into and out of places without being seen. Um, and I think that works for those two characters because he's so small. I like if they got some other kid that was older and bigger, it wouldn't have worked as well. Like
Well, yeah, and again, like Isaac is a very interesting character too in this because he because again Malachi's the he's the loose cannon. He's the one that starts to find Isaac throughout and all that stuff, and And so Malachi's just like, why are we keeping, these two non-believers alive and stuff? They're breaking all the rules. And Isaac's like, no, she has a gift. We're not touching them and stuff. They're allowed to do it. It's kind of interesting a little bit with Isaac to a point, because it's like, to a point, yes, he is a bad guy. He is the bad guy, but he's not a bad guy, because again, he does, like, it makes you kind of wonder that if he would be, is he so willing and so nice to Job and Sarah because of the fact that of Sarah's gift, or would he have been more relaxed if other kids in the group did what they were doing and stuff, but like none of they do because they just follow Isaac unquestionably and stuff.
So I kind of got it like this. I kind of thought that Isaac always knew, or it knows, that she is more or less a clairvoyant and just uses her, or can use her when he needs to. And then of course Malachi is like the big brute who believes but is envious because this little guy who speaks better than him has more power than him.
Mm-hmm.
And so Malachi follows Isaac because he thinks that Isaac speaks to he who walks behind the rose. But Malachi doesn't like that he has to follow him. So there's all this subtle tension that that Malachi has been underhanding Isaac, like before we see them in the movie, 3 years after the uprising. You get the sense from Job, the stories he tells about Malachi, that Malachi is someone who kind of does a lot of stuff outside of the sights of Isaac, and so more of the other children follow Malachi because he's bigger, he's taller, he's stronger, and we wonder why he hasn't reached the age to be sacrificed yet. But they follow him because of that.
Well, it's like with the way they did each character and stuff, Isaac is a character with a code.
Yes.
He's following directly of what he who follows behind the roses says, and follows it to a T, while Malachi is more wish-washy. He very much he very much does things, like you said, for power and stuff. So I think a lot of the things, I mean, again, the reason why people fear Malachi is because, again, he goes and he's a loose cannon. He's the one who kills people when they're not supposed to be killed. And he's the executor and stuff. Mm-hmm. So everyone's afraid of him because of that. I think it's less they respect him, more they fear him. While Isaac, they don't fear because he is smaller, but also, again, he has a code to everything, while Malachi doesn't. That's very much shown near the end when they start bickering because, one thing is Isaac's like, you do not touch Dale and stuff. We need Dale. We have a deal with Dale. Dale's the one who gives us fuel and stuff because, we can't always rely. And Malachi's like, well, we have the corn now. That'll be fine. And Isaac's like, no, we don't. Like, that's not going to work long term. Like, we had a deal. We have an idea how to do stuff, and you're breaking it because, again, he's taking everything to the furthest extreme of things. It kind of makes you wonder, if Malachi wasn't there, how Isaac would hold things. Because the way I read Malachi is Malachi's the one who, like you said, does things behind Isaac's back and probably bends the rules a little bit more than how Isaac would like. But because he's his enforcer, he kind of lets it go until Malachi's like, no, I'm fully taking over now and stuff. I've done enough to sow the seeds of discontent and stuff because no one's going to betray me because they know I'll kill them, versus Isaac, who is, again, just the figurehead. He is just the preacher. He doesn't dirty his hands and stuff.
No. You get that sense that Isaac may have never killed anybody. He's had other people killed for him and in his name, or in the name of he who walks behind the rose. Yeah. But Malachi has definitely killed people, and he relishes in it, and he loves to do it, and he has no problems in doing it. That is a huge difference between these two characters. Yeah.
Isaac follows it because he truly believes it. Malachi follows it because it helps him with the power. It helps him with his bloodlust and stuff.
So, another thing I want to talk about in this film is the fact that this he who walks behind the rose, which I still can't believe that is the concept behind the actual the monster in the film. I do like some of the aspects of this, whatever this creature does, because I like the fact that there are those certain instances early in the film where he parts the cornfield. He parts the film when the first guy, what's his name, Joseph, I think it's Joseph, gets killed.
Yeah.
Joseph. I kind of get the impression that before then, I don't know if any of the kids know that he who walks behind the rose can part the cornfields. It seems like something that the creature does whenever no one else is around. So it seemed like when it happened with Joseph, Joseph was completely shocked that it happened. So it's like something that in the 3 years that they've been following behind Malachi and Isaac, that it's never happened before. But we see it a lot in this movie, especially when it happens in front of Bert. Bert, it happens in front of Bert, and instead of Bert following through by going deeper into the corn, he steps out to go back to Vicky. And then or I think it's Vicky, yeah. Then you
Yep.
you kind of get this impression that is he who walks around the rose trying to tempt Bert, or is he trying to help Bert, or is it just like we don't know yet? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I always want to bring that up because other than that, we only see the creature when it's underground and it's moving until the very, very end. So
It is very interesting because to a point it's like it is a deity you don't know all the rules to and stuff because again like at the end and stuff when it basically possesses Isaac to kill Malachi for defying it and stuff like it's it was interesting because yeah I think with the beginning of it parting and stuff I think that is gives a little bit of a hint too to the like when I saw it, I had to really look at it to be like, oh, like because when I first watched it, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't even think comparing it to it was the He Who Walks doing that. But seeing later when it actually starts attacking Bert with the corns and stuff, seeing that it does have that power, uh, I think that for me, rewatching it, I was like, oh, that begins the small hints of if again someone who maybe like me walking in being like, oh, I don't think it actually exists, and giving a hint, it actually does exist, but you aren't. But it's a little foreshadowing a little bit of it. Because yeah, I mean, as for what its goal was with that, I do think that to a point it's hard to say in the end. I can see there being a thing where like it is helping Joseph get out and also it may be trying to help Bert. There also is a point that said that it could be, trying to get Bert in the cornfield so he can kill it later. It's kind of hard to say because of like again, we never get a full picture of it. We have to at the end of the day take what Isaac says to heart at the end because of the fact that it ends up, it ends up possessing Isaac to get payback on Malachi for defying it and stuff. So I would have to imagine, but there's an interesting question too about why it's only going after adults and stuff, and why at a certain age it's like okay, I'm going to feast on you now, like what it did with Almost.
yeah, and yes, that's a good question as well. But to kind of go along with this, you got to keep in mind that until Amos, he who walks behind the rose doesn't really kill anybody. It's
Yep.
Malachi and other people that are killing because Malachi kills Joseph in the cornfield.
Yep.
It's not he who walks behind the rose, and then we don't see when the creature tempts Bert because Bert steps back out of the cornfield. But we do the only time we think that might something might happen is when it follows them when they're trying to destroy it. But then that could just be a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
Uh,
because in the original thing, it was gonna when it was going to be seen, it was going to be seen, and it was going to be seen during that sequence, trying to destroy the irrigation stuff to
yeah.
try to save itself.
Hmm.
So really, I mean, yeah, again, you can argue it's not trying to, it was more trying to defend itself and go after Bert because it knew what Bert was trying to do, unless, oh, I'm just trying to kill Bert to kill Bert. Because if you look at it during that sequence at the end, it goes after Isaac at the time because Isaac was on the cross. But all it does is end up possessing him so he could kill Malachi, and then it eats almost. But after that, it doesn't do anything after that. Like what it reminded me a little bit of, it reminded me of Pennywise, of the sense of like it may have a quota that it wants to feast on and stuff, and it reminds me actually a lot about Pennywise of like it is probably trying to take advantage of the kids to a point and trying to, use them to help it eat, but it only is eating a certain number because they say, again, they need two. It's a group of two, and that's all they're trying to do. So it's not like it's endlessly feeding. It's kind of like Pennywise of it just wants to get a certain number, and then it's fine for a while. Because you see that when they're doing the ritual with Almost and stuff, and we're seeing the birthday list of,
Oh yeah,
and it's not a high number. It's, I think with the birthday list, at most sometimes they were like groups of 3, but other than that, it's not like bunch.
no, it's only been 3 years, so
Yeah.
I would suspect that there's not that many people yet that have reached the age of them having to be sacrificed. I actually kind of didn't mind that aspect of the film because I thought that made it much more interesting that they want to keep the age below the age of adulthood in the town. Of course, eventually that will die itself out because everyone will eventually grow up and there'll be no more kids left to do anything. So,
Well, the thing with that is, and I'm glad they changed it because I know in the short story the age was 19 and then they changed it to 18. But also the idea is that they are to populate amongst themselves and stuff. That actually was going to be referenced a little bit in the story. There were cut scenes of some pregnant kids in the camp and stuff that they cut because the implication is they're having to, because yes, you're right. I mean, eventually it's a finite number. They will eventually run out. So that's the idea, is that they repopulate amongst themselves before they hit 19 in the original story,
yeah.
but 18 in this.
That was 19 in the movie too. I could be wrong about that one though.
It's 19 in it's 18 in the movie.
Mm.
So when they turn 18 in the movie is when they kill him, versus in the short story where it's 19.
Okay.
Which is weird in the short story because yeah, you would think 18 makes the most sense of like, yeah, that's when you grow up. That's the age you're considered an adult. So it's kind of weird that they consider it 19. Stephen King did 19 in his short story and stuff.
It'll be interesting if I ever go back and revisit this one. I have not gone back to revisit the book in a long time. But the short story collections, the Night Shift and the other one from that era, I generally remember really loving the short stories and Night Shift and I can't remember the other one that he did back then. It's been so long. I need to revisit those instead of keeping read all King's newer stories and books. Especially considering they're still making these fucking movies. But thankfully, the most recent remake for 2020 did not borrow a whole lot from this movie, but the 2009 remake did.
Yeah, which the changes they made in the movie compared to the short story, I was all fine with. I think they all made sense. The introduction of Job and Sarah made sense. It's actually funny that Sarah really wasn't that much in the original when it feels like a very much a Stephen King type of character. I'm fine with them changing how long the community's been going out because it was 12 in the short story and 3 in the movie, and the logic Goldsmith had made sense of like it being 12 years is kind of hard to believe no one would have picked up, and also like how based on the way they established this community and stuff, how they're able to survive 12 years of that. Because you're right, again, it's like eventually, unless they repopulate it amongst themselves, but even then, eventually you're going to run out of people.
Yeah.
So it being 3 makes sense. And then I'm also okay with the lighter ending, because where, Vicky and Bert survive versus the short story where they die.
Yeah, I remember in the 2009 remake, I think the man dies at the end.
I think they
Did they both die?
I believe they both die.
Yeah, there was something about the way the 2009 remake ended that just didn't sit well with me, and so I've never revisited that one. I've generally seen.
Yeah, they both die in the 2009 remake.
So I the first 6 of these I've seen multiple times. Anyone after 666 I've never seen more than the one time I saw it. They've just after that one they just were not worth me going back and rewatching them. Uh, so that being said, that this one is an anomaly because I still think even after all this time, this movie still holds up extremely well compared to some of the other films in this franchise. I just think that the kind of the magic of the performances between the Job and Sarah and between Vicky and Bert are just something that just are compelling for me, and still compelling. I think that it was handled real well, even though the director I'm not familiar with. I wish I could say I was familiar with the director, but when I looked them up again, the name, I was like, yeah, I'm not familiar with the director for this movie.
He did not have a lot of
Kirsch.
he did not have a lot of movies. His last movie was The Hunt and Surveillance in 2006. Yeah, he did not have a lot of movies. It's funny because, again, what ifs? Sam Raimi was originally talked to direct this movie, and it ended up not going to him because he wanted more money. Like he wanted a bigger budget for the project, and they were like, nope. And so he bowed out of it and stuff before they went with Kirscher. But yeah, no, it is funny because after Children of the Corn, he didn't really have a lot of movies after that. He didn't have a long career.
I grew up watching Tough Turf as a kid and watching Into the Sun. And the rest of his movies, don't remember anything, not at all. And yeah, those movies had, James Spader and Anthony Michael Hall and Michael Paré. And of course, those were 80s. And I guess Into the Sun came out in 91, which is kind of hard to believe that's that old, that wasn't the 80s movies too. But those are the only ones of his that I have actually said that I have seen. And I grew up watching. I don't remember anything else he did. Oh Jesus! I've seen his other movies. We're looking at it now, and I saw Gore in the 80s. I saw Fatal Charm. But I never went back to rewatch those movies. Which is why his name is just not higher on my list. But then again, in the 80s, we had the Stephen King adaptations had a lot of different directors behind them, and the quality of the movies is probably what prompted Stephen King himself to direct Maximum Overdrive. And then, of course, after he did it, he realized that was a mistake and never did it again. Despite the fact, Mr. King, as we've said on this program before, when we did Maximum Overdrive, that's one hell of a fun movie, regardless of the chaos that you had to endure to make it.
And King very famously hated the script for this. He hated the script. There was a basically Goldsmith script. King said that Goldsmith was the hack and he didn't understand the horror genre at all. And Goldsmith was like, "Well, your thing was boring and it felt like it did not translate well to film." And it's funny because one thing that affected the budget with this is Stephen King's like, okay, if you're going to make any reference to me, because this is again advertised as Stephen King's Children of the Corn,
Yep.
Stephen King's like, all right, you taking my script, I need a good chunk of royalties off this. And he asked for a big amount, and so that affected the budget a lot, actually. A lot of the things I've referenced in this episode about things they had cut, half of that happened because of Stephen King, because Stephen King asked for a bunch of money for royalties, and that cut the budget down, so they had to start making cuts of stuff they couldn't afford to do anymore because they had to pay Stephen King. But yeah, no, but there was agreement with that too, where Stephen King's like, you can't talk smack about the movie. So when people interviewed Stephen King about the movie, he was like, we'll see what happens. Like he was very much cagey about, like, he didn't badmouth it because that was the agreement of, we're going to give you a bunch of money, you're going to not badmouth us. But he definitely was like, yeah, he was like, we'll see what happens.
I kind of wonder what he thinks of all the random sequels that have been made and why the legacy of this franchise is still going after 40 plus 40 plus years.
Oh yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, at that point, it's kind of like how Stephen King feels about like the sequels to Carrie and stuff. Like he probably just, I have to imagine he had to just stop caring after a point.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, but I don't know him personally. I wish I could meet him. I'd go up to Maine and say, "Hey, your films and your books were a huge chunk of my growing up in the '80s, all because of my mother. Your shit was a huge like influence on me in the '80s, and so." I would like to say, you did a lot for independent filmmakers with his whole Dollar Babies thing. If you're not familiar with the concept of King's Dollar Babies thing, I'm not going to explain the whole thing out there, but just know that he was a big proponent for young filmmakers, by allowing them to make versions of his short stories only, by sending him $1 to get the rights to just do one of his short stories, but they couldn't make any money off of it. So you can make all these student films and film festival films based on his works. And he was fostering this huge, huge world of independent filmmakers creating stuff from some of his well-known short films. Stephen King, unfortunately, Children of the Corn was already owned by the company, so you cannot do that one. But a lot of the other stories have been made a plethora of times. Rainy Season has been amazingly done by lots of different people out there as well. This one seems like it would be great as a Dollar Baby to see how other people attacked the subject matter. But since the rights and whoever owns the rights will not let this franchise die, we probably will never see it.
No, it's under New World Pictures. So
Currently, who did the new one?
uh
2021. I'd have to look. I don't know who did
it was, oh, Shudder did it. It was distributed by RLJ.
RLJ. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I know who they are. They do a lot of horror films. So the rights. Well, the thing is that after Dimension and the whole fall of the Weinsteins, lots of the properties were sold off. Just to keep that Dimension and the other Weinstein brother afloat. So I'm not surprised someone finally decided to make a Children of the Corn film, since they had the rights now.
Yeah, it's interesting because Miramax did the sequel, and
Yes.
then
Well,
after
that is the Weinsteins. Miramax was two companies, Dimension and Miramax, until Miramax was sold to Disney. But the other brother, Bob, still owned Dimension. So the other sequels have Dimension behind them instead of being Miramax. And so they
and
held
then
on to that franchise for the longest fucking time, dude.
yeah, and then the Fox did the one that went straight onto Sci-Fi Channel, the
The
one on
2009 remake.
2009, yeah.
Yeah.
So the rights have been bouncing all around.
Yeah, but the Weinsteins held it for so fucking long, it was ridiculous. Like I said, the whole why they probably said we're not making any more of these shitty ass sequels, so let's just finally sell the rights Uh, it kind of like what happened with Hellraiser, because the Hellraiser franchise with the remake was not done by Dimension Films. I don't believe so. I think that was since that was an Amazon film. I can't remember who owns Amazon, so you know,
Jeff Bezos.
huh?
Jeff Bezos.
Yes, yeah, we know he owns it. Oh shit! But the thing is, we'll see some more of these out there because once someone has that IP, they're not gonna let it go back to Stephen King. It's kind of crazy. Hellraiser will probably never go back to Clive Barker ever. It'll just keep bouncing back between companies, buying it off other companies, and keep making that shit. And Children of the Corn will do the same thing. And at this point, I don't even know if Stephen King even cares. Because this is a short little story that has spawned what? How many? Fucking 6, 7, like 10 sequels. Like, can you imagine that? Like, you wrote a short story, and there have been 10 versions of the goddamn short story out there, and all you do is cast a residual check from it. That's got to be the craziest thing I've ever heard of. I don't think any other franchise can claim that. I don't think so.
No, I mean, I think I think Stephen King has just kind of like just, I mean, at this point, like I think he has mellowed out in his older age and stuff, so he probably is just like, yeah, that's cool. You do whatever.
I think so as well. I think so as well. He's not doing cameos in a lot of these movies being made based on his works anymore, and a lot of them aren't even, with the exception of the ones that I think premiere on Netflix. A lot of the newer ones don't get the accolades they deserve anymore, except for like Warner Brothers with the
Yeah.
uh, you know, which is a remake as well. So someone was bound to remake it the TV movie.
Honestly, again, like we talked about it before, but the fact they did the long walk was like this a day and age was shocking to me.
Mhm. You know what? Do they? I cannot remember because I cannot remember is if they actually advertised that as a Stephen King based property or not. To be honest with you.
Um, yes, they did. They did say they do say in the posters about like from Stephen King.
Oh, okay, because they don't do that with the Running Man when they remade that.
No,
So I wanted to, yeah, because I don't think they did that with the original Running Man, much less this Running Man.
no, because I think it's because it feels doesn't feel very Running Man. I mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't feel very Stephen King like.
No, no. Oh shit. But I do want to I will say that with this film, and this is such I have a different experience with this than you did because I grew up with this fucking movie. And this became a rewatch at least a few times every decade up until maybe the 2010s. I don't think like I literally don't think I've seen this movie in at least a decade. Um and I didn't really need to. I'd seen it so many times growing up. I just never went back to rewatch it. So rewatching it now, I saw some things in it that I didn't see as a kid. So I really enjoyed rewatching the film and re-experiencing it. Despite the fact that, I used to think that the shoddy special effects at the end were shoddy until rewatching it. I was like, you know what? It doesn't look nearly as bad in this cleaned up Blu-ray version I'm watching now. It looks pretty decent considering that I've only ever watched it on like the VHS or TV version. Oh my god! But I know you, on the other hand, who just watched it. I'm always curious to see how you younger generation people watching it for the very first time now kind of gets taken in or not taken in by the fact that this is an 80s movie with these really 80s aesthetics to it. And these actors that you have seen now who are much older, but in this film were really young because you didn't grow up with it. So,
Yeah.
but
No, again, I was pleasantly surprised about how much I ended up enjoying it and stuff because we didn't talk about it much, but Bern and Vicky again, I really enjoyed both of them. I thought They both were well acted. What I liked about them is there wasn't a lot of moments in this movie where I felt they made a dumb decision. Like at the beginning, like when they hit Joseph and stuff, and I was again expecting the whole like, oh, they're gonna automatically think, oh, I hit the kid, like I did, and he's like, oh no, he got cut, like he was already dead. This that, like there wasn't a lot of decisions made where I was like, no, that was a dumb decision. Like they were generally smart throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, the only part in it, and I keep thinking that it may have been an accident that was just a happy accident, or if it was in the script, it just gives a little bit more authenticity to like the realism of the movie. Is the fact when not Malachi, but when Bert's in, I think he's in the shed, and I think it's Malachi that he hits, but then he turns around and
And he
runs.
hits his,
Yeah, and then he runs out, and you see, oh shit, man, I just hit my fucking head, and running down the alley. I always gotta laugh at that one, but it all also made me think that this was much more authentic because that's what you would do in a dark place. You wouldn't see the goddamn pole right there. Yeah. I was like,
it's it is a random bit of comedy, but you're right. It didn't like when I saw for a second, I also laughed at it. I was like,
yeah,
what the hell? But then I thought about it more. I was like, no, I mean that was a good moment because you have to have moments like that where you kind of like, because you're right. It makes it feel authentic. Of like, it doesn't feel forced. Of
yeah.
like, yeah, like that's realistically something that could happen.
Yeah. So those things like that are part of why I like the movie, and especially a lot of the stuff, a lot of the way Job reacts and says certain lines. I think is just great. I don't think that actor did anything else really, but then again, I wouldn't know because in this movie he's a kid, and 10 years after being a kid, he could have been grown. He could have grown up and become like I don't know what.
Yeah, he did not do really anything after this movie. I'm trying to see, but I think that was he may have done. He obviously did not get big from this. Okay, he did. Okay, he was in Monster Squad.
That looks to be like the only movie I've seen with him.
Yeah.
I've seen Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael too. So
Okay. He's in a couple things after this. Probably Monster Squad seems to be like the biggest thing. Then he's done a couple TV movies and stuff. But
yeah,
all of this, I mean, he's no longer acting. He
no.
stopped acting a long while back.
Yeah, kids don't always stick with it. I mean that's not a bad thing. We've all heard the horror stories of kids growing up in the Hollywood world. You know, growing up and maturing from a kid actor to an adult actor seems to be the craziest and most stressful thing out there. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Now one last
Go
thing
ahead.
I'll talk about with the movie is uh the ending was so weird. And when I say ending, I mean the ending, the roll credits was so like because you have the moment at the end where they try to go back to the car, which apparently even Linda Hamilton was like, "Why did we go back to the car? We know the car's not going to work." He actually said it to the producer, and the producer's like, "Just do it." But they run into one of the uh girls from the cult and stuff, and they knock her out and stuff, and then they decide to just walk to the next thing, but they just start walking the next thing, and you just see the roll credits. And I remember I was like, "What an odd way to end." I'm like, I guess that's logically, but like there wasn't even a cut to black. It's just the credits start rolling as you see them starting to walk away. I was like, "What a weird choice." I don't know
That
if you felt that way.
That not no, because that happened a lot in '80s movies, especially in a lot of in I've seen a lot of different films from other countries. So a lot of different films used to do that, especially like your random action films and stuff like that. You'd still see like people still milling around on that final scene as the credits are rolling up. How horror films are a little different. As an audience member, we get used to the we just cut the black because we're hoping for that scary moment like in Carrie, and you think that they're trying to go with that last girl hiding in the back of the trunk, but then she just gets knocked out, and he says, oh, she's knocked out cold. And then they get out of the car and then they walk away.
Yeah, they knock her out. It's like, well, I guess we should just get out of here then. I'm
Yeah.
like, we're just
Well,
gonna.
the only thing is I could think of is that he mentions the town that they were trying to get to originally before getting trapped in Gatlin. Because they keep coming back to the fact that it's like 15 miles or so away. So I said, we better get walking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing I could think of. Is that in theory, if you're watching the movie and you don't see them ever get out of Gatlin, you think they almost kind of stuck in Gatlin. Until they say, "Well, I guess we better get walking to the other town." And you gotta believe that there is, like the supernatural forces that kept Bert and Vicky there. So when they're circling back and forth through the cornfield, and they end up backward, right where they started at Deal's gas station. You kind of get that there might be something keeping them there for some odd reason that we don't know, and that now that they've killed he who walks by the roads, they could just go to the town they were always meant to go to in the first place.
Oh yeah, that they won't have any issues getting out of there. But yeah,
It is funny though. It is funny. It's not something you normally see in a horror film.
yeah, because it's just like, well, that just happened anyway. Off we go.
Yeah, yeah. And like, well, you got 15 miles. Well, who's got the backpack? Let's gather some water and supplies because it's 15 fucking miles.
Let's go back to the escape bunker and grab all
Oh
those
yeah,
supplies
all the
real quick.
supplies are in the escape bunker. Yeah. Yeah, but that would be too much logical thinking.
Well, what's funny too is when Bert is getting chased throughout the town by the kids, there was a brief thought that it's like I could see someone watching and be like, they're a bunch of kids. What's so scary about kids chasing you? And then I think about weapons and the ending of weapons, and then I'm just like, oh no, I've between this and weapons, if I see a bunch of kids running at me, I'm getting out of there.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that there was another who I wanted to make sure that I got the name of the movie right. Blah blah blah. There's another film that kind of okay, yeah, the movie also that came out in 76 called Who Could Kill a Child, where you have these two grown-ups on an island of kids who are trying to kill them, but these grown-ups can't kill children. They just physically, like, they can't because they're children, they're innocent children who just want to kill them. And that's kind of like another film I kind of see that's kind of a companion film to this one, except that's more tragic by the end of the movie. That's probably the ending that they tried to avoid with Children of the Corn, was the tragedy of that film, for probably good measure. I don't know if that was successful or not, but they're very similar. This one just seems a little bit more, well, we need a little bit of a happy ending. We're going to have them get out of Gatlin, but we don't need to see them get out of it. We just need to hear them know that they're getting out of it. And that's our happy ending. And everyone could walk away with the world returning back to normal until they do Children of the Corn 2, the final sacrifice, which just means that there's more shit out there, the really screw up grown-ups. So, with that, is there anything else that you think we need to discuss about Children of the Corn, Philip?
Nope.
All right, so I want to thank you for joining us on this conversation about Children of the Corn from 1984. For everyone listening, what we love to do is we love to rate the films between 1 and 5, 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. But what we like to do in our program is we like to attribute our ratings to a particular object, quote, or saying. What is your rating, Philip, and what quote, object, or saying are you going to attribute to your rating for this film?
I'll give Children of the Corn 4 corn crucifix out of 5.
That's a good one. That if I was thinking of that, I would have thought about that one as myself. But instead, I'm gonna I'm gonna rate it 4 straw man versions of Isaac that get shot up into the air, because that always confused me about this movie, that he who walks behind the rose changes Isaac into a straw man, gets shot up in the air, and then Isaac just kind of comes back as Isaac, just a little bit more possessed next time we see him.
It's a very silly effect of just like, because you see the blue man guys on his thing, so you know that's not the normal reaction of him, where he's just like, all right, time to shoot you up in the air. Again, I took that as later on when Isaac's showing possessed, that's him being like, all right, time to eat. What the hell is this? You're not supposed to be up here. Get out of here.
Oh, Jesus. So, with that, I want to thank you all for listening to our conversation in the horror of this episode. We hope that you are enjoying all the other episodes that we have released this month for our Stephen King tribute month. This is our second year doing this, and we are going to continue doing this year after year, because you know what? There are a ton of Stephen King adaptations out there, and I don't think we will ever run out of them because they keep making more. Yeah. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, I hope that you have enjoyed the show. Please make sure the like, follow, share, subscribe, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast app, Spotify or YouTube. And please check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which is every first and third Friday at 8 a.m. We focus on the Hammer Studio films from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And if you are a classic horror film lover, you will love that podcast. From all of us, please have a great day, and we will see you on the next episode. Just not in Nebraska or anywhere near a cornfield. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production. Written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers. Executive producer, Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.